Big time. Co-main event this weekend at lightweight. A couple of men who have called American Top Team home at one time or another. We have Damir Ismagulov off that retirement talk. He's going to be taking on KGD Grant Dawson. And if you look at it for Ismagulov, getting ready for his last matchup against Arman Tsarukyan. Two guys that trained at American Top Team and Tiger Muay Thai. Ismagulov at TMT. And then you had Tsarukyan at ATT. And Arman Tsarukyan, though he only went 7-21 on takedown attempts in that fight, that really was the story of it. All three judges 30-27. Ismagulov, after the fact, goes on to Instagram. I'll throw it up there. He retires. And then a couple of days later, he says, well, I've got one fight left on my UFC contract. I hope the UFC run it back in a rematch Tsarukyan. And they went, what? No, it wasn't even a close fight. So ultimately, Ismagulov, the giant win streak is snapped. And now he's taking on an up-and-coming, a hungry Grant Dawson. Throw out whatever adjectives or superlatives that you want. He's on his own tidy 10-fight win streak. You pepper in the draw that he had against Ricky Glenn due to the 10-8 third round that Glenn was able to throw out there. And that is what it is for Grant Dawson. 2 big wins his last couple of fights. Couple of finishes, too. One against Jared Gordon. I mean, my guy Leo Santos, that was sad to watch. But if you look at it for Grant Dawson, even in the Mark Madsen fight, it's a great submission win. Grant Dawson's one of those guys, like one part of my favorite drink. Matt, I'm a big fan of Fever Tree ginger beer, and I like to drink it on its own. I like
90 years old?
I like to drink it as part of a mule. No, I like drinking Moscow mules in the weekend. But when I look at their slogan, it's the silliest one that's out there. It's, if 3/4 of your drinks is mix with the best. Matt, Grant Dawson, 3/4 or more of his drink is jiu-jitsu. And trying to mix everything into it can be a little bit of a struggle sometimes. And we saw that against Nadner Imani. We've seen that against, Leo Santos at the start of the fight.
Exactly. That was a difficult fight for him.
Grant Dawson has struggled with the other quarter of the fighting, and that's been the striking. And we've seen it kind of progress a little bit at ATT since he went from glory to ATT before the mass exodus. So good move on Grant Dawson, I guess. But it's going to be tough for him against a guy like Ismagulov, who it was bend but don't break takedown defenses last time out against Tsarukyan, but Ismagulov's one of the better boxers you're going to find out there at 155, who doesn't tend to use a lot of kicks. I know he's like that old Dutch kind of fable, winking, blinking, and nod, where he will do the blink that's out there. It's more of a tick than anything. It's not that he's hurt in his fights. But Ismagulov on the outside, peppering you with the jab and the 1-2, he can be a big problem for a lot of these fighters.
And that's why I think Grant Dawson really has to get this fight to the ground. Wow, Matt, what a hot take. But you bring it up. Damir Ismagulov has been taken down in the past, but what he is great at is it's difficult to complete the takedown on him. You might get him off his base, but the second you initiate any kind of a scramble with him, he's digging an underhook, he's forcing the whizzer, he's getting back up to his feet, and he doesn't allow himself to get controlled for lengthy periods of time. But that's where Grant Dawson and his skill set really does come into play, because even if he does get one of those 6 of 29, 6 of 28, whatever it is, takedown attempts, he only needs that one to really get enough work done in the top position. And that's the thing about Dawson that you do like. Outside of the submissions, he is quite heavy with his ground and pound as well. He will go for a lot of elbows as well. And so Dawson doesn't just rely on submission or nothing once he gets it on the ground. So I do think he can accumulate some damage. But with that being said, it's difficult to just take Damir Ismagulov down and have success, not just minute after minute, but round after round. And I think Grant Dawson, outside of a stoppage, is really going to have to rely on a lot of that top control. So for Ismagulov, you bring it up, not just the boxing, the jab of Damir is phenomenal. And if he is able to use his own jab to keep Grant Dawson away, it's going to be that much harder for Dawson to get on the inside to complete his own takedown attempts.
You got a little bit of Rod Stewart, Maggie May going on here, a little bit of a frog in the throat. But if you look at it, Matt, I mean, for Ismagulov in this matchup, retirement talk scares a lot of people, and when you say that you have one fight left in the UFC way back in January, it gets buried away and people forget about it. Not here at Fight Night Picks. So if you look at it for Ismagulov, he blew the doors off of just about everybody until he fought Rafael Alves, who dropped him in the first 30 seconds of that round of their fight.
Remember that reversal too?
But then all of a sudden it was the rest of the round. Hammer is Ismagulov, nail is Alves. And the third round of that fight ended up being halfway competitive. If you look at it for Ismagulov, majority had thought that Kutateladze won their split decision fight. But if you look at a matchup like this, again, it is the boxing on the outside of Ismagulov. He does conserve his gas tank really well. He's a 5-round trained fighter, being the former M1 Global champ. But if you look at it, a lot of inactivity throughout his UFC career, and that's why even though he had a slow burn to the top 15, it wasn't really as pronounced as some other fighters have been.
It's like having Paul George on your team. When he's out there, it looks phenomenal, but all the inactivity in between does leave you with a lot of question marks. And like you say, if Ismagulov, I don't think this is his mindset. Let me get this very clear, but you have to bring it up. If Ismagulov is just like, hey, it's the last fight of my contract, like, let's just get this over with, right? Like, that could be an option for him. I don't believe that is. I could even see him getting a win maybe, and then that kind of relighting the fire under him. Now, at 32 years old, he is going to have to kind of get working at a certain point because lightweight division is as deep and as stacked as any division, but this is a great fight because I do think Dawson has some defined areas of his skill set where he can have success. It would be wild to see him just maintaining that top spot, hammering down on Ismagulov, but Dawson I do think does have that kind of top control.
Hit him, Kim Carnes. If you look at it, I mean, Ismagulov's right now in a category...
Burpee McGee.
I didn't. Not in this video.
In the majority. Settle down.
Piotr Yan reached the pinnacle, won the title, and it's been a landslide since. Askar Askarov reached near the pinnacle, and then he lost the fight, and that was it. He was outside of the UFC. Ismagulov is in that spot right 100%. Now in his career, and he's training at Evolve to get ready for this one. He's training with Rinat Fakhretdinov. You've seen him out there. You've seen time at Tiger Muay Thai as well throughout the career. But if you consider for Ismagulov, again, I'll be interested to see if he does at least throw kicks in this fight because he is a 2/3 to the head, 1/3 to the body, and rarely ever kick type of fighter, which could ultimately win him the distance battle in this matchup, except for if they end up in a clinch position. That's where Dawson can start feeding the uppercuts and just going Marge Simpson on this fight. So if you look at it, Ismagulov is favored to get the win. We have a look at the topology votes. Surprise us there to you. I'm going to say over under 70% Ismagulov.
I have a really hard time with this. I'll say over, though.
I'm going to say over. It's slightly under, so 835 total votes, 68% Ismagulov, 88% by decision. For the 32% that have Dawson, 65% by decision. And I mean, Dawson primarily known as a finisher, so I'm kind of surprised that everybody sees it going to a decision in this one.
I just think Ismagulov's so good defensively that even if Dawson is able to get it into some of those positions he excels at, yes, he might be able to get a lot of that top control. He'll get some ground and pound, but I think it's going to be difficult for Grant Dawson to submit a guy like Damir Ismagulov. It's really difficult for Dawson to go and get some of that back control. Now, if he is able to complete some of those takedowns, and especially early, I think that's going to be the key. The numbers might not look great. It might hurt his overall takedown accuracy numbers, but if Dawson can just get some of those early takedowns to make Ismagulov work, because here's the thing about Damir, he has all the skill in the world, but if he's down 2 rounds, what is he going to do in that 3rd round to go out there and get the stoppage? Yes, he has good power, but he doesn't have like Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler power. He has good submissions, good grappling, but again, he's not like a Charles Oliveira, so I'm very interested to see how does Damir fight if he isn't in the lead. I still have him in the matchup, though. Hopefully we brought up enough red flags. I think if everything was the same and Damir didn't kind of retire the last time out, then I would have him quite soundly in the matchup. But with all the red flags, I do think this is a very close fight.
Going with the well-roundedness out of Damir Ismagulov to pick up the win, but we'll see if that retirement talk looms large. Some big-time fights on this card overall. But the next one's the biggest of them all. We're talking about Sean Strickland taking on Abus Magomedov. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.